the winter was very harsh. Putin seemed to be getting a lot of concessions from Trump. The Europeans were torn over how to best step forward in place of the US, but they seem to be getting there. There's obviously issues. But how do you feel about the momentum? You mentioned that earlier. How do you feel about the way things are going right now over the summer? Do you think the Ukrainians could hit further and deeper into Moscow, into Russia, and that could spin things around even more?
Well, I know they can. I mean, I think they hit St. Petersburg, last night while there was some kind of conference going on there, and hit some, military or industrial targets that are on fire now. By the way, I did see that on Twitter, and I did not get that when I came into my office here. I sit on the Armed Services and the Intel Committee, so this is just me, like, kind of doom scrolling this morning on Twitter, and I saw that they hit some targets in St. Petersburg. They have capability to target things beyond Moscow now, and that is increasing. And I think the Russians are going to increasingly find themselves in a really challenging place where they're not going to be able to intercept everything. And there's some industrial targets, their oil and gas infrastructure, that'll hit the Russian economy hard in a time when the Russian economy is in a really bad place. Now, if we could ramp up sanctions on the Russians, we could put more pressure on Putin. And I think when Putin gets to the point where he no longer sees any upside on this, I think that's when you get the negotiated settlement and this thing could come to an end. So the momentum looks good right now. Could that shift back in the other direction? I think if Putin can figure out a way to replace his troops and actually train them, right now the people that Putin sends to the front lines have little or no training, and they just push them forward and they get massacred. And the Russians don't even generally try to retrieve their bodies or the injured. And it is for a Russian soldier, you're going into a meat grinder, and you're very
Mm.
likely not to survive this. And when that word gets out, it's going to be harder to find people to replace the troops that are killed in action, and this will continue to go in the direction of the Ukrainians. But if Putin figures out a way to throw a massive number of people at the problem, I think the momentum could shift back. The Ukrainians have been incredible innovators and figuring out a way, to take out Russian systems to make this really hard on them. Starlink has been a great tool for the Ukrainians, and it's been hard for the Russians to. In the beginning, they were able to access Starlink and get the terminals. That's getting much harder for them now. And you're going to see their drone technology continue to develop. And any Russian soldier that happens to be watching this, podcast should understand that if they're thrown into this fight, they're very likely not to survive because the Ukrainians are getting really good at killing Russians.
Mm.